University. I'm very excited that you're joining us this evening. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our coordinator, Amanda Knapp, who will provide more information about our session this evening.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We are so pleased you're here for this important conversation. The Civic Leadership and Service Series offers engaging discussions with public service leaders on the areas of civic engagement, leadership, community infrastructure, and social justice. We are excited to be joined tonight by this fantastic panel for this important discussion on transportation. And as I said, we have a wonderful panel, but first I would like to introduce our County Commissioner of District 5, Eileen Higgins. She is my favorite, but she was elected on June 19th of 2018, and she serves as our County Commissioner for District 5. She is a dynamic and has a dynamic and vibrant district, and she represents parts of Miami Beach, downtown, Brickell, as well as Coral Way neighborhoods like The Road, Silver Bluff, and Shenandoah. And she also represents Little Havana and West Flagler to north. So thank you so much, Commissioner Higgins, and I'll pass it over to you.
All right, well, welcome everybody. It's fantastic to be with you tonight. I get the distinct pleasure of moderating a panel with the folks in our county. There are 4 individuals here you're going to get to hear from that literally know everything that could possibly be known about transit systems, and not just here, but from other parts of the country. It is great to know that you all are actually interested in transportation. And of course, what we know about transportation is hard, right? It requires a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of engineering, and quite frankly, a lot of figuring out how to get things paid for, and a lot of public input so that we can figure out how to get it right. I think most of you know our county doesn't have the best public transportation system, but I can tell you the team you're talking to tonight is transforming that for you. And 10 years from now, our county is going to be a very, very different place. We will probably have 4 to 5 rapid transit corridors built out, additional trains going to the beach, up to the north corridor. The south corridor is under construction. So there is a lot coming, including real improvements to our bus system. So it's an exciting time to be part of transportation. And I hope that some of you as students aren't just interested in government, but you're actually interested in transportation policy and working in the industry. Today, there's so much going on just this week. And this is just the stuff I know. So imagine what these panelists know is we just decided we're going to extend the Metro over to Miami Beach. We just had a behind the scenes tour of our new Aventura train station that Brightline will be going to. And on the South Dade corridor, which is our new bus rapid transit corridor all the way to Florida City, we marked the 60% completion mark. So that's just what I know about. So lots going on here in the county. Enough about me. Let me introduce you very quickly to our panelists. Javier Betancourt, he's the executive director of the Miami-Dade County Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, fondly known as the CITT. They really are a group of committed volunteers who help advise us every step of the way and make sure we actually spend our money properly and in accordance with the law. So Javier can really give you that interesting perspective. Aileen Bouclé is here. She is the executive director of our transportation planning organization. You'll find out from her how it plays such an important role in making sure we're able to get money from the federal government and money from the state government as we advance our projects, and also that she can plan them properly. Director Eulois Cleckley, he is the director of our Transportation Public Works Department. He's also CEO of Miami-Dade Transit. Comes to us with experience working in U.S. Department of Transportation's, worked in Denver, worked in Houston, so seen lots of different kinds of public transportation system, and has taken over ours at this critical juncture. And then we have Ms. Tony Garcia. who runs the Street Plans Collaborative. And he has always got this on the ground view of how we can make sure that it's not just about transit, but it's about how the community connects to transit, whether that's through housing, streets, walkability, bikeability, and some of the creative thinking that goes on there. So we'll start with who wants to go first? Maybe I'll start. Director Cleckley, are you there?
I am.
You want to be first? So yeah, so
sure.
will you just share with the students a little bit about, your role in transportation for the county, and maybe some of the exciting things that are going on that you're hopeful about, and share some of the frustrations too, or things that you stumble with, so they get the real story here tonight too.
Yeah, thank you very much, and Commissioner Higgins, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. There's never any issues with transportation, right? But it is truly a significant time to be here in South Florida. There's so much energy, and I would say leadership on a variety of different levels to help improve our transportation system. And I'm definitely grateful for having this role with the county. So I'm with the Department of Transportation and Public Works. That's essentially two departments in one. The transit side of our department is responsible for building, operating, and maintaining and providing service across 4 different types of transit modes. And so we have our Metro Rail system, it's 25-mile, 22 station system that we currently have, that we're responsible for. We have our 4.4-mile Metro Mover station, where Commissioner Higgins made mention of, that we're now planning to extend that from the city of Miami Beach to the city of Miami. And we also run and operate our Metro bus system as well, which is the one mode that comprises of about 70% of our overall transit ridership. And we also provide paratransit services. And so think about the ADA, more elderly population that we have that needs specialized transportation. We provide that service as well. So we're the 15th largest transit agency within the country, and the largest transit agency in the state of Florida. On the public works side, we're responsible for 5,500 miles of county roadways, well over 3,000 traffic signals, 190 or so bridges, and 168 canals. So that kind of makes up our entirety of our portfolio, and we essentially touch every resident, almost every business here, and every visitor here in South Florida. Some of the projects that we're excited about is, of course, one at the forefront of everybody's mind is the SMART program, which we have really moved forward toward implementing 6 corridors to expand our mass transit system. And so the commissioner mentioned the North Corridor as is one of those corridors that we're very excited about. That's a opportunity to expand the mass transit solutions all the way up to the Broward County line up 27th Avenue. We mentioned before the Beach Corridor and the Bay Link connection that we have, but as a part of the Beach Corridor project, we're also looking at extending the Metro Mover system up to the design district from school board. We're looking at the Northeast Corridor, which is utilizing the existing freight rail tracks that Brightline operates their inner city passenger service on, to create a commuter rail option for folks coming from the northeast part of the county. Our South Corridor, which is our bus rapid transit line, that will be one of the longest all-electric bus run and operated bus rapid transit corridors in the country. And so we're excited about those opportunities. That project will actually have 14 iconic rail-like stations, but essentially it's the service is going to be operated on specialized 60-foot all-electric battery-operated transit buses. And so we're excited about that. And then we are working through opportunities to provide a mass transit solution from essentially downtown city of Miami all the way to going west to the Miami Park and Ride. And the Miami Park and Ride is actually slated to open up on late November. So later this month, that'll be a new park and ride that will allow people to travel to downtown using one of our express bus services. So on top of that, that's on the capital side. We're also we've re-optimized our bus network. And so simply put, there's this project called the Better Bus Network, which was a multi-year advocacy-led effort to increase frequency on our most used bus routes. And so we had that plan actually passed last October to move forward with implementing that new type of service. And we're excited about hiring all the drivers and operators that we need to make that service happen. And so once we're complete with that, it'll allow more people to get better access to jobs and have less delay time, less wait time, and we'll actually have more buses to provide that service. And so we're excited about that opportunity. That's going to impact the entirety of our network and any of our bus riders on that system. And so those are just a few things on the transit side and transportation side that we're working on. The last thing I'll just say that just as a point of note, our department is very focused on making sure that anybody who travels, regardless of the mode that they choose, that they have the opportunity to travel around this county in a safe manner. So whether or not you want to travel by bike, walk, in your vehicle, or even on transit, no one should end up losing their life by just traveling around this county. So we have a program called Vision Zero, which is a very aggressive effort to decrease the number of fatalities that are on our roadways in Miami-Dade County down to zero. Right now, we have 350 or so fatalities per year, and that's way too much. And so we are, through our Vision Zero program, identifying intersection improvements, additional safety improvements to make the traveling public feel much more safe moving forward. So I'll stop there. There's 1,001 projects, but those are kind of the highlights that we're excited about.
Well, thank you, Director. All right, so now I'm going to go back in time because, as you can tell, the director has to implement a lot of things, but a lot of those things get their start in our transportation planning organization, which is ably run by our executive director, Eileen Bouclé. And she can, I think, bring some perspective to the complexity that goes on in transportation planning, the thoughtfulness that it takes to bring these projects to where they can be engineered and paid for. So that we bring them to life. So Eileen, we'll turn it over to you. And if you could just help us understand more about what that planning process looks like.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. And hello to my colleagues and thank you to everyone for joining us. Transportation planning is an amazing field to be in. The one thing I'd like to point out is that every single construction project that you see out there when you're driving around has been in the pipeline for a lot longer than you can imagine. A part of the job of the Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization is to identify our needs well in advance of when we actually really literally need them. Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking, hey, I'm in congestion or there's not enough transit options going on. Why wasn't this planned ahead of time? And actually, you're right. We have a long-range transportation plan over a couple of decades that didn't really have any type of transit or mobility options other than highway roadway. And I really have to say that we've done a great job building out our roadways and our highways, but we haven't done as good of a job building out our transit to have a more balanced network. So that has been the priority since 2016 when I joined, and I can really talk more since I've joined. And back in January of 2016, as I mentioned, there was no transit projects or plans for expansion in the long range or the short range plan. Within the first 4 months, we adopted the strategic Miami area rapid transit. We made transit the #1 priority, as well as transit supportive projects. We work with, really, I deliver the directives of the TPO governing board. You know, Commissioner Higgins is very humble, but she's actually our key champion on transportation and knows this better than anyone. And really, she, through her vision, as she chairs the transportation committee, as well as on the TPO side, shares the urban task force committee, through her championship, through her vision, we are able to come in and plan and execute projects that in the past we have not been able to do so. In addition to funding, you know, our funding, our needs exceed our funding. So we have to have a prioritization process in place that follows the federal transportation process. The mandate of our board, we are a federally mandated board, is to oversee, we are the custodian of the federal transportation process, federal transportation planning process. That means everything we do has to stay within the federal framework so we can receive as much federal funds, transportation dollars, as we possibly can. So there are several phases in project development. The first is identifying your needs. We have very sophisticated traffic models that model all sorts of scenarios going out 20 and 30 years. And we know where those improvements are needed. We're doing that today for 2050. So we're looking all the way out. We have to program those projects first by planning, identifying what are the needs, identifying what is the funding that's needed, and identifying who is the jurisdictional agency that has to carry out that project. And we have to go through the distinct project phases of planning, environmental, design, construction, and then the ultimate project phase, forever and ever, operations and maintenance. And all of that has to be funded, all of that has to be modeled, and all of that has to be in our plans. So that's just an overview, really, from a 1,000-foot perspective, Commissioner, on how we carry out on a daily basis our long-term and short-term transportation needs for funding and execution.
Thank you, Eileen. You got 2 Eileens on this call today. This is your lucky day, everybody. So as you can see, we've got a ton of planning. It sounds bureaucratic, but if we don't do these long-term plans, we never get any federal money. If we don't get federal money, we can't afford to build all this stuff. Some of these projects are in the billions of dollars. So it's really important that we participate in this federal and state planning process. But on the other side, in addition, to all that planning, we also really need and want to have ideas from the community and from not-for-profits. So I'm going to turn it over to Javier Betancourt, who manages our Citizens Independent Transportation Trust. I can hardly say that, CITT.
We need a rebranding, Commissioner.
You need a rebranding with less. The CITT, I can say it's your regular name. I'm like, citizens, that's the hard part. But can you just share with the students what role the CITT plays
Sure.
In helping us advance the transportation agenda in the county?
Sure, and thank you, Commissioner. And I have to say, this is not an easy group to get together, especially this week with everything going on. So it is a testament to FIU and to your program that you managed to gather all these people. Me notwithstanding, I'll talk to anybody, but to get the Commissioner, the Director of DTPW, Tony, and TPO all on here is a major testament to what we think of FIU and this program in particular. So don't take it for granted. I am going to share my screen and a few slides. I know that's not kind of the cool thing to do right now, but I'm not as handsome as Eulois, and so I need to depend on slides. So just a little bit about, first of all, the CITT, then I'll go into the half-penny sales tax or surtax, if you want to get technical about it. And then talk about the People's Transportation Plan, or PTP. So in 2 days, we will actually hit the 20-year anniversary of the referendum, which approved the surtax, what they call the half-penny surtax. That's a half-penny increase in the sales tax that you pay anytime you buy something. And that also created the CITT and approved the People's Transportation Plan, which is the list of projects that half-penny is meant to pay for. So first of all, very quickly about the CITT. We were created along with the surtax in 2002. We are really a volunteer board of 15 members that are appointed by each of the county commissioners, the mayor, and the Miami-Dade League of Cities that meet once a month to review projects that would like surtax funds. And then really what I do is I am the paid help, right? So we are the OCITT, or Office of CITT, and we support that volunteer board of members. So I do get paid, thankfully, and thank you for that. Our mission is to monitor, audit, review, oversee, and investigate the use of surtax proceeds and the implementation of the PTP. Very quickly, those are our members. We would love for one of you to join them. We need some younger members. So if you are interested in becoming a trust member, I'll come back to this slide later. But you know, we are looking for applicants and candidates. And I think someone from your group would make an excellent trust member. So we won't get into all of this boring stuff. But yeah, we do a little bit of everything. In addition to auditing and reviewing projects, we also do strategic planning and analysis. That's the stuff that I enjoy as an urban planner by trade. If I were just, you know, a glorified bean counter, I would be very bored. So I've expanded the role to include things that I enjoy. But let's talk about the money. That half penny has been collected for 20 years. And it doesn't sound like a lot, a half penny, right? Well, it is a lot. In 20 years, we've collected a little over $4 billion. And that's just part of the story, because then those $4 billion have been used as leverage as a local match to attract additional dollars from the state and federal governments, right? So and that was always the intent. We need a local match in order to be competitive, in order to draw down those funds from the states and the feds, because it's a very competitive process. Everyone's fighting for limited dollars. And where has the money gone? Well, most of it has gone to Miami-Dade Transit. There's a lot of misinformation in the community about where that money's gone, that it was used to build roadways and other things. Well, no, it did go to Miami-Dade Transit. A lot of it did go to operations and maintenance of the existing system and to renew the infrastructure, which was in dire need of repair. But a lot of it also has gone to replace the fleets, to build parking rides, to expand Metro Rail to the airport, et cetera. 20% was agreed to go to the municipality. So we have 34 cities in Miami-Dade County. Each of them get a share of those surtax funds, and they use those funds for transportation as well, including all those trolleys and municipal circulators and freebies that you increasingly see serving all the different cities. That is paid for nearly exclusively by those half penny funds, although the TPO has an amazing program to match those funds so that cities can increase those services as well. A little bit has gone to public works at the county to build, expand roadways and you know, invest in our smart signals. And then very little has gone to us. You know, we like to keep our expenses at less than 1% of revenues. We want the bulk of the funds to go towards programs, projects, and services. Okay, this is the same story told differently. So let's talk about the PTP, the People's Transportation Plan. This is the list of projects that was approved at the same time the surtax was approved. These were the promises that were made to the community on what we would build and pay for with those funds. So it was enhanced bus service. It was enhanced rapid transit. So basically the smart plan that we're talking about was originally conceived as part of the PTP, the same route. I think smart plan is just, it's better branding and a better process on how we achieve those rapid transit corridors. But we also agreed to fund major highway and roadway improvements. We agreed to give the cities 20%. We agreed to eliminate fares for all seniors, regardless of income, what we call the golden passport. We also made Metro Mover fare free, et cetera, et cetera. So people just remember Metro Rail expansion. It was about a lot more than just that, right? So how have we done in 20 years? Well, we've made a lot of progress. And here you can see kind of a collage of some of the progress we've made. Metro Rail was expanded to the airport. We've completely replaced all of our fleets. The cities have done great things with their money and creating the trolley systems, et cetera. We implemented the fare-free transit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a lot to boast about, but clearly there are some areas where we still have to fulfill the promise, specifically in expanding rapid transit, which we're doing now through the smart plan. So we talked about all that good stuff. won't get into the smart plan. So the last thing I want to say is that there are many ways to engage with us and for us to engage with the community. I've made community engagement a key part of my priorities. One of them is to become a trust member. Another way, and perhaps easier way, is to become a CITT ambassador. We just launched this program recently, and basically we're looking for regular users of the transit system to be our eyes and ears in the system. So there's an app. You basically, you send your observations as part of your daily ride, and we send all those observations collectively to the department for them to address any concerns. And then we also ask you to push out social media messages, right? To inform the public about what's happening with their half penny and what's happening with transit. And in exchange for that, we give you points, which can be exchanged for rewards such as free transit passes, ride share, scooter share, et cetera. So if you're interested in being a part of the solution, become a CITT ambassador. You can find our application online. And I'm all about engagement. So we have a new talk show that I'd love to have some of you on to talk about transportation. Eulois has been on there, Commissioner. We're going to get you on soon. And that show is doing very well. And that's really it. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Well, thank you, Javier. And now we'll hear from our fourth panelist, Tony Garcia, and he's a native Miamian. So I'd like to kind of hear from you what you and the Street Plans Collaborative are working on, and then also what excites you about transportation in Miami and where you might think we can do better.
Sure, I've got a lot to say about that. Thank you for having me.
It's a G-rated show.
Yeah, I know. I'm okay with that. I'm really, honored to be with all of you guys, and I want to share just. I think my work speaks best through images. I'm also going to do share just a few slides here, and I am an urban planner and an architect. I am based in Miami, but I work really all around the country doing bicycle pedestrian planning and also transit planning. And our work actually runs the gamut from high level 30,000 foot planning to detailed engineering level drawings to actually going out and building the infrastructure with the community. And I think for this crowd in particular, my story is super relevant because I started my career as a transit advocate. Unlike you, Commissioner, I didn't go into elected office, but I am a transit nerd. And I studied architecture. I did architecture by day in the early 2000s. And by night, I wrote a blog called Transit Miami and did all sorts of advocacy, writing to elected officials, pushing the envelope. I voted for the PTP and I wanted to see action. I wanted to see things happen. And I wasn't seeing that action. And in many ways, that experience has colored my entire professional life, because after the sort of 2008 bubble burst and all of our architecture projects dried up, my other partner on the website, Mike Leiden, who was writing about bicycles, we were already friends, but we said, this is what we want to do. This is our vocation, is actually being passionate about planning transportation systems. And I didn't want to do architecture anymore. He didn't want to do code writing. He wrote the Miami 21 code when he was at DPZ. So we started a company together. So my advocacy and my civic engagement, my life as an advocate led to my professional vocation, which, 20 years later is still the core part of what I do for a living, is designing streets and public spaces for people who walk, bike, and take transit. And most of the time in my work, I'm looking at a project like this. This is in suburban Broward County, and trying to retrofit the street to make it easier for people to walk, bike, and take transit. This is a project we did with the Broward County MPO that was actually built. And we're confronted with an angry public, angry elected officials, or engineers, people who don't understand why we're reallocating that space. And our job is to try to show them this is a good idea. So we developed what we call tactical urbanism. It's a methodology for implementing transportation projects using low-cost, short-term materials. And I really like to talk about it in the parlance of our sort of transportation planning jargon. It's about project delivery and breaking down project delivery into smaller increments instead of jumping into long-term capital that, as you mentioned several times, and the other speakers have as well. It costs a lot of money to make change, but it doesn't necessarily have to. There are a lot of things that we can do between zero and the final product to get people riding bikes, walking safely, and taking transit before we spend millions of dollars and many years of political capital and time. So I just want to show a few images of a project of a project in California that really shows how we can make big change for relatively low dollars, few dollars, and how that can translate into something in the future. So this is in Culver City. This is a 1.5 miles of protected bus lanes and bike lanes that run through the heart of Culver City. Culver City is a community where all the major studios are. Sony Studios, Amazon now, Gone with the Wind was filmed here. Any of our major landmark movies were filmed in Culver City. And basically what this project entailed was going from 4 lanes, 2 lanes in either direction, to 1 car lane in either direction, and reallocating that space for physically separated bus lanes, physically separated bike lanes, and all the other components you see here, these beautiful teak platforms. And everything I'm going to show you here was done for about $1.5 million. And in 1 year, we got a notice to proceed in October and it was built in November. And some of the stuff we actually build with the community. Part of our whole methodology is that there are components of the work that we do that we can have people engage in civic life in a way that is not confrontational. It doesn't involve going to a council meeting or commission meeting or voting, but it allows people to engage in the city building process in a meaningful way. So most of the time, what we're looking at is really trying to reallocate car space for people, whether that's people walking, biking, or taking transit. And I often like to use art as a way of sort of marking my territory as space that can be reused as or rebuilt as pedestrian space. So we do all of the technical documents, the public engagement, and it happens on a really fast timeline so that people see some sort of result of the work. And again, I point back to my experience as an early advocate, my impatience with the process as a sort of the genesis of this methodology. And for anything that is art related, I go back to my artistic and architectural training. I do hand drawings, and then that all gets translated into a digital format and something that we can do with the public. So just thinking about what that existing section looked like, if you're from Miami, Miami, think about Miracle Mile. This is a comparable street to Miracle Mile where you have on-street parking and 4 lanes and a median. And we took it down to 1 lane for cars, 1 physically separated bus lane, so people cannot drive in this bus lane, and a curbside protected bike lane. And here are just a few shots of that. We also do these things called curb extensions at the corners. And so all of that is about slowing cars and increasing the amount of pedestrian space. And we get people involved actually in painting. We do trainings with these are all normal people, just people who are engaged and interested, who wanted to work here. And I go out and I paint the outline for the components. It's a mural called Scenes of Bayona Creek. It's a creek that runs adjacent to the site. And so I create the design so that it's easy for people to be out there, and we learn from them. They tell us about how the street will actually function, and it is engagement. Building the project is engagement. It's also a photo op for folks like you, Commissioner Higgins, so that you're not waiting for the next 5 years for a train to be built to Miami Beach, which we're all very excited about. It allows you to have the forward momentum build and show results to the community and continue those investments. And so the early results, part of the whole methodology also is data collection. we're tracking double-digit increases in transit use, in bicycle use, in pedestrian use, and micromobility, all while the congestion levels are not any worse than they were before. So the big takeaway, I think, for people in Miami, especially looking at a peer city like Los Angeles, is traffic is not something we're going to solve. It's never going to get any better. It is what it is. There's a geometry problem when it comes to roads, and we are a bunch of people living in a relatively small area. The best thing that we can do for everybody living here is provide other ways of getting around. And so here, actually in the morning, we made it easier by 1 minute. There's a 1 minute improvement in travel speeds. In the afternoons, 2 minutes. But we didn't change the number of cars on the road. We just made them use one less lane. And then we gave over all this extra space to people in other modes and increased the number of people who were able to shop, spend money on Main Street in Culver City. So that's the presentation, and that's really what I had to say. But in terms of the longer term, as an advocate, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, I look at like it's the old question or riddle. Would you rather take $1 million today or a penny every day for a month? And I see transportation, especially in Miami, that way, where we've been chipping away at it for 20 years. And every day you might be doubling a penny, and then it comes 2 pennies, and then it becomes 4 pennies. And we're going to start to see the results as the projects start to come online. And LA had a transit tax. They've been expanding their metro rail like crazy. And you start to see the benefit in mode share. And I think that's going to happen. I'm really excited to see where we go.
Well, thanks, Tony. Actually, it's I love the idea of quick build, right? And trying things, right? I remember, I think the city of Boston just decided it was going to have a dedicated bus lane, and every morning, literally at 4 a.m., they just put cones.
That's right.
And then at the end of the day, they got rid of them. And so
That's right.
certainly it was inconvenient for a guy to go put cones out every morning, but they didn't have to wait for millions of dollars. And before I turn it over to questions to the team, I think I'm going to explore 2 areas. One of which is a little bit about quick build. Flagler Street, as you all know, is one of our longest corridors, and we have one of our highest bus ridership on Flagler. Goes from downtown all the way out to FIU and beyond, or the engineering campus of FIU and beyond. And we've been looking to put BRT, bus rapid transit, kind of dedicated bus lanes that are totally protected, and a more rapid system out there, because as you all know, it could take an hour plus to get out on the existing bus system. And so one of the things we're doing, we're starting it this year, and maybe Eileen, you could talk about this, is our demonstration project on the Flagler Street BRT. On the parts where it's easy to build, we're actually just going to more or less do it with paint. And so it's an example of what you're doing, but in this case, we actually have to work with the Florida Department of Transportation. And to you students out there, it's a lot easier to work on our own streets than it is to work on the state streets, but the state's been really interested and excited about doing this. Eileen, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, Commissioner. That is really an excellent example, because what we're trying to do is introduce a dedicated bus lane to what is really unequivocally the #1 highest demand ridership for transit, bus ridership, and any arterial in Miami-Dade County. So we have the demand, we have the ridership, but we don't really have, that level of service that we really want to have on that corridor, because the buses right now are traveling in the same lane as the congested cars. So we want to separate, and we want to start adding even more amenities, more benefits to the bus users. We want to grab even more riders. So we want a dedicated bus lane on what is the highest demand, highest ridership from every, in the county. And in order to carve out a dedicated lane, we had to work with the jurisdictional entity that oversees that roadway, which, as Commissioner said, is the Florida Department of Transportation. They are a key transportation partner to the TPO. And really, that is a taxpayer-funded facility by us, the taxpayers, the citizens of the state of Florida. And FDOT is charged with the oversight and jurisdiction of maintaining that road. But sometimes when we want to introduce these concepts, they may not fit in the design manuals and the design standards that the state has for state road facilities. So we have to work with them to get exceptions and variations to the design manual so that we can, accomplish what we're trying to do. And so one way to do this is to bring all partners to the table, FDOT, and of course the county, which is the champion of this, and do what's called a demonstration project and or pilot project where we're going to implement on a temporary basis. And that means they're not permanent improvements. They're temporary treatments that we're going to do to introduce a dedicated bus lane. And this allows a partner like FDOT to come to the table with a little less risk, knowing that if something happens when we repurpose one of those lanes and there's some unexpected issue that comes up, that then the conditions could be reversed. But actually, we already know that when we repurpose the lane as a demonstration project, what we're actually doing is gathering data and coming back to the TPO board and also showing FDOT through proof of concept. We're gathering data to show how effective this concept actually is. And we're going to show that the worst case scenario nightmare that they're most afraid of, which is extreme traffic and an upheaval in the community, that perhaps maybe that may not happen quite as they may think it may. I think initially, anytime there's a change, there's always backlash. It's our job to be out there educating the public. It's our job to be out there educating the benefits of a dedicated bus lane for this one corridor that has the highest demand. And in time, you achieve acceptance and expectation of the traveling public. So we have agreed to a demonstration project under the championship and vision of Commissioner Higgins. We have it fully funded. We're moving forward with it. We appreciate our state partners coming to the table in what otherwise they would not have done if it was a permanent project. So first step, like Tony was saying, we have to try these things. We have to pilot them, with mitigated risk, and then proof of concept, data, bring it back to the board, bring it back to the state, show the public why, with proof of concept, why we need this, and then convert it to a permanent condition. But that's basically the steps involved from the planning perspective.
Great, thank you. And Eileen is right that sometimes everything has changed. Like when we talk about this, what Tony's talking about, like this taking away of things, people get nervous about it. And I'll give you an example from my district, 22nd Avenue by US 1. It's a residential street, right? Even though we consider it a big road, there are houses on it. The average rate of speed was 55 miles an hour. Okay, you want your kids or yourself coming out of those driveways. And so with the help of our department, we designed a road diet. We were going to put in a dedicated bike lane and bus lane. The buses, we have a bus, so we needed the bus every now and then to go into, to be able to pull over. And we made the lanes skinnier. And you would have, the neighborhood outrage, like there's going to be traffic backlogs, everything's going to happen, da, 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 da. And I said to them, we're only using paint. Like if it really is a disaster, we can paint it back. Well, guess what? We use the paint, we put in the dedicated bike lanes with the bus every now and then having a pullout. The only things that are ever in the bike lane are bikes and every now and then scooters. The buses pull into their bus bays, and we just redid the traffic study, and the average rate of speed is 35 miles an hour. So, it's much safer. You're much more less likely to die at 35 miles an hour than 55. So, and now nobody complains, but these things are dramatic. I'm going to pivot to one thing, which I think you probably all read about in the news. And I'm going to turn this over to Director Cleckley. Congress last year, I know it's on the 15th of November is the 1-year anniversary of the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I just call it the infrastructure law because it's shorter. But that has nearly $1.3 trillion in it. to improve our country's infrastructure. And it's given, I think, a lot of excitement around what can be done because it's about bridges. It's also about roads. There's a ton of money for pedestrian improvements and safe streets improvements, and there's more money than I've ever seen in my life for public transportation. But maybe Director Cleckley can talk about the opportunities that this presents for our county to really accelerate some of our transportation and pedestrian and cycling improvement plans.
Sure, absolutely. So this is a very unique time in the nation's history. This has been the largest one-time investment in our infrastructure in the nation's history, quite frankly. And a couple of things have happened to kind of unlock this opportunity. One, that there's been a significant investment into public transit, which has always been kind of a political hotbed, regardless of who's in office. But the fact that this bipartisan bill allows for billions of dollars to be invested on the capital side, as well as service improvements, is really a marker to the administration, the Biden administration, with respect to making sure that we're investing in our future when it comes to transportation. And so for our department and the county, in conjunction with working with the TPO, the Eileen, and with our state partners as well, we are moving forward with several different types of transportation related projects to try to take advantage of this federal money. I'll just make mention of a couple of programs that hopefully we will be in receipt of some dollars based off of grant submissions that we have just submitted. And there's a couple other programs that I'll mention. We have submitted, there are 13 unique discretionary grant programs, which essentially means that these are competitive grants where everybody across the country, whether you're a municipality, whether you're a state, or whether you're a transit agency, you competitively submit an application for a project to receive funding from one of these discretionary grant programs. We have submitted a grant for in the Safe Streets for All grant program. I mentioned Vision Zero before as a safety related program that we're very interested in, reducing the number of fatalities on the roadways. That program is allocating significant dollars to a recipient to make intersection improvements, other improvements related to pedestrians as well as cyclists to be able to travel around much more safe. And we, in our grant submission, have identified 50 of the top 100 high crash locations to hopefully be invested in at that discretionary grant. We've also submitted for another grant program that's focused on equity. The Biden administration at the national level has encouraged everybody throughout the country and every entity applying for these federal funds to develop their projects through the lens of equity. And we have done the same thing here. There's a program called Reconnecting Communities that we've applied for to perform some planning work for the North Corridor. So the North Corridor, again, is the mass transit solution up Northwest 27th Avenue. And that's a traditionally underserved area. And we are looking to have the mass transit investments spur additional development along that corridor. And we submitted for some planning dollars to do planning studies around transit-oriented development, specific potential transit stations along the North Corridor. So we're excited about that. Those are two most recent grant programs, but there's a slew of other programs that we're going to be applying for as a county, one of which is the zero emission or the low or no emission grant program. So simply put, this is federal dollars that's available to municipalities and transit agencies to purchase alternative fuel transit vehicles. So in our fleet, we have approximately 800 buses in our fleet. We are endeavoring to transition 20% of our fleet over to alternative fuels, whether it be compressed natural gas or all electric transit vehicles. And then we're also going to be entertaining other new fuel technologies like hydrogen fuel cell and the like. Those grant dollars at the federal level will allow us to be able to purchase those vehicles and transition our fleet to a more sustainable one. And the last thing I will say is that the dollar amount of this investment is significant on the capital side. So I mentioned all the SMART program corridors that we have. We had the opportunity to leverage our local funding source that Javier Betancourt from CITT made mention of, to actually have the local match to be able to effectively go after the federal dollars to move forward with our significant capital projects that have a high price tag. So as an example, our North Corridor project we keep mentioning, that's probably going to be an over $2 billion project. We would not be in a position to be able to advance that project effectively if it wouldn't be for the opportunity to go after these federal dollars. And so that's the importance of what passed last year, and how municipalities like Miami-Dade County, as well as other municipalities across the country, are going to leverage those dollars to make sure we invest in our communities and move forward with projects that were promised but had a difficult time being funded. And so we're excited about those opportunities moving forward.
Yeah. Commissioner, if I can just add, for those who really want to geek out on the infrastructure bill, I placed a link to an analysis we did of the bill when it was passed in the chat room, so you can download that and read it at your pleasure.
Yeah, and then I posted a link to a short film that we made to accompany our Reconnecting Communities grant about how infrastructure in the past had been used to destroy neighborhoods. Particularly in this case, it's the story of what happened to Overtown. So we interviewed a number of the people that were displaced by that. And basically, you know, in the 50s and 60s, the country would just build highways in Black neighborhoods, let all those folks move way far away from jobs and leave them without transit options. So we're hoping our North Corridor will qualify, because as the director said, it's pretty expensive. We are absolutely positively 100% going to need federal funding in order to make that project a reality for our community. Okay, Amanda, I've gone too long, and Dr. Caraballo. But does anybody have specific questions for any of the panelists? If you raise your hand, we can. Do I see any? And help me, Amanda, as you're looking around, if you see anybody's hands raised.
Not yet. Some were asking questions in the chat.
In the chat, we've seen some, and I think we've seen some back and forth. You'll record the chat for us, right? So if we can answer those tomorrow, we can do that. No,
Javier was answering as well.
Okay. And I think I did a few in there as well. Okay, well, if we see no hands raised, maybe we could do a pitch for you all are studying things. It's kind of cool to work in transportation. In case you like, look at my screen, like that's, we're building this thing. So you get to build fabulous things, you get to design fabulous things. But at the end of the day, what you build brings economic opportunity to people, because it connects them to jobs, to education, to fun things to do in a whole lot less time. And public transportation saves each and every one of us money over driving in a car, and you get to save our planet. So it's a cool thing. I can tell you the people that work in this field are phenomenal. And if anybody ever wants any advice on what a career in transit or transportation planning might look and feel like, I'm sure any one of the panelists would including myself, can connect you to people that do that for a living. So any of the panelists have any parting remarks?
Yeah, to that point, by the way, I included my contact information earlier in the chat, so that's direct line to me. And I also included links to become either a CITT trust member or an ambassador if you're interested in serving, but neither one of those are salaried positions. What I will tell you is, you know, a career in transportation is fulfilling. Nothing really touches every element of society and every demographic group quite like transportation. And it's not going anywhere, right? We're going to keep having to move people. So it's a great career and it pays well. My parting thought is, if you're going to go into public service, if you're going to go into government, you know, there are really two types of us, right? There are bureaucrats and there are public servants. Everyone on this call is a public servant. It means we're passionate about what we do. We're all in. We're solution oriented. We engage with the community. You know, don't be a bureaucrat. Don't just take, you know, a government job and punch in and punch out and do the bare minimum. We have plenty of those, and we need more passionate public servants. So, and I think that's what this group is really gearing up to be. So we welcome you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Agatha. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you to FIU, to the Ferré Institute. I saw Sonia on here too. We're just so happy to be part of the conversation about the future of transit. And FIU is the institution from which so many people who work in this industry and in our county government come from. So we love you and we thank you very much, and reach out to us if you have any questions. Amanda, I'll turn it over to you in case you have any closing words.
Yeah, we are just very excited and honored that you all attended. We had a great turnout tonight. So we know our students learned so much from you guys. And if our students want to take it further, to get involved in our government, our community, FIU, I dropped our links in there for the Ferré Institute. We do this every semester, and great news, we will be collaborating with Commissioner Higgins in the spring. So we are excited, and we have a lot of events coming up in the